Hey folks, we're about 3 minutes out. I wanted to encourage folks to come on in and have a seat.
Can you imagine doing that in public? Oh my God. Yeah, thank you. Again.
Not being quiet, but
Oh, hey, good to see you. How are you?
Folks, let's come on in and have a seat. We're going to get started here in just a minute.
Over and me here and you. Oh, sorry, thanks.
They gave us a bigger one.
Oh, yeah, bigger, yes.
how's it going?
They mixed us up.
They mixed us up a little bit.
Well, sort of.
They did. I don't think I've been ever saw it before.
They keep us on our toes.
Yes.
That's what they do. At least this one isn't as crunched. Last night was like really
Yeah, I was. Jay was like this, and I was like, oh man, don't smack me now. And that the
Just as a heads up for the candidates, so supposedly with these mics, you're going to have to hold them and in towards your mouth. Just a little warning. All right, are we ready to get started? So, good evening. Thanks for being here tonight, whether you're joining in person or tuning in online. I'm Gary Bus-Tunde. I'm hosting tonight's event along with Brad Williamson and Matt Hawley. There you go, Matt. We're all part of the Kirkland Alliance of Neighborhoods, or CAN. We're a nonpartisan group made up of representatives from all 13 neighborhood associations across Kirkland. And we're excited to have you here and hope this forum from both is informative and worthwhile. Now, we would like to thank everyone who sent in questions. We were pleasantly surprised of how many we actually received and how broad the topics were. Your questions have been incredibly helpful and very much appreciated. Now, because of time limits, we couldn't include all of them and had to do some consolidation. If your question does not get asked today, we encourage you to reach out to the candidates directly. Now, and to the candidates, we like to especially say thank you, not just for being here to share your views, but for stepping up to run. Serving on the council is no small task, and we truly appreciate your commitment to our community. Now, tonight we do have a few rules. We shared some of them with the candidates already, but I'll just step through them again tonight. It's pretty straightforward. We'll kick it off with each candidate getting 2 minutes for an opening statement. They will then be followed by asking candidates questions. We'll be switching up the order throughout the evening, so nobody is always first or always last. So the order in which the candidate will be called is going to keep changing, and each question will be randomly picked for one of the council seats. And the two candidates for that seat will answer the question back to back, with the speaking order also chosen at random. Then we'll move on to the next seat and repeat the process, continuing until all 4 seats and all 8 candidates had opportunity to respond to each question. Pretty straight? Okay. Now, the candidates will get 60 seconds to respond to the questions. Now, we do have 2 mics on the table. You may want to split them up, so 4 share one, 4 share the other. So when we call on a candidate, please pass the mic to them so they could use. After that, we'll switch, in the case of 60 seconds to answer. After that, we'll switch to a series of yes/no questions. All candidates will respond at the same time to the question by holding up a yes or no sign. We've provided those yes or no signs. Now, only our signs will be allowed. Just want to make sure we all understand each other. Now, if you choose not to use a sign, that's fine. You choose not to answer the question. But if you use a sign outside of what we provided, there will be a penalty, which will be the loss of your closing statement. Okay? Now, for the candidates, everybody can see the monitor. And we're going to be using this as a visual timer for you. So the opening statements, you get 2 minutes. The question's a minute. The timer will click once the question is asked to you and you acknowledged it. Okay? So that's the only thing you need to do is keep an eye on that. And the one last thing before we start, how should I phrase this? We are lucky to live in a place like Kirkland. While we won't be taking questions from the audience or have candidates debate, we do ask that everyone, audience as well as candidates, pull back any reactions during the event. Let's keep it respectful and community focused, just like Kirkland deserves. We enter as a community and we want to lead as a community. At that point, I'd like to turn it over to Matt.
Now that you know the format and rules, please meet each of the candidates running for positions in our Kirkland City Council. Candidates, please wave as I call your name. Jay Arnold, running for position 1. Ken Oberman, running for position 1. Katie Malik, running for position 3. Shilpa Prem, running for position 3. Ken McKenzie, running for position 5. Neil Black, running for position 5. John Pascal, running for position 7. And Kurt Dresner, running for position 7. Now we're going to circle back and provide our candidates with an opportunity to give an opening statement. We'll be giving you a 2-minute visual countdown to help you stay on track. Our first candidate is Neil Black. Can you please start us off?
So I want to thank CAN for tonight's forum and everyone attending and also those watching from home. I also want to thank the Lake Washington United Methodist Church for all that you do for our community. Kirkland's a serious city, and it's a city that others look to for innovation and leadership. And it's the city that I love. My wife and I have never lived anywhere else as a married couple. And I'm proud of what we've accomplished during my time on the council. We've added parks, open space, and trails. We've invested in best-in-class police, fire, and other first responders, including a new class of first responder in the form of mental health professionals. We've worked to reduce gun violence with 6 guns for gift card events, getting over 300 unwanted guns out of Kirkland homes. We've reduced crime. We've added the city's first homelessness outreach coordinator and created a homelessness action response team. We've secured state funding to upgrade the Kirkland Performance Center and complete the last road crossing for the Cross-Kirkland corridor. We've launched a podcast and a newsletter to increase connection with our community. And we did all this, a lot of which is new levels of service for Kirkland residents, while adopting this last December a flat budget for the next 2 years. That's without reducing any levels of service, increasing investments in human services, fully funding our reserves, and preserving our AAA credit rating. Proof of responsible fiscal management. I'm proud, but we still have a lot of serious work to do. And we need serious people doing that work. That's why I'm running for re-election. I listen with compassion, coupled with truth. That's sound governance, and that's my commitment to you. I humbly ask for your support.
Thank you, Neil. Next candidate is Ken McKenzie.
And I also thank Ken and the Lake Washington United Methodist Church. This is not your usual Kirkland election. The stakes are high and the differences are stark. Our current council has planned massive growth for Kirkland over the next 20 years. Urban density in many parts of Kirkland to turn Kirkland into Seattle. And I say no, it's time for modest growth. For more housing options, yes, we need to provide more housing options, and we need to keep Kirkland, Kirkland. In 2009, Nicole and I moved here. In 2011, I became a stay-at-home dad with kids in elementary school. I spent decades before that managing teams of engineers, some as large as 200. I'm a community guy. I've been working with CAN since 2016 when I first became involved in my neighborhood association. In 2019, I helped define a fire ballot measure, fire station ballot measure that resulted in some additional improvements in our medical services as well. And then in 2022, I was invited by the city to be part of a committee of people to define an indoor recreation center. And I enjoyed that. We worked on it for about 9 months, and I decided I really wanted a pool. It'd be really great. But the city's proposal at the end of that was a bad deal for taxpayers. So I led the effort to defeat that at the ballot box, and 60% of Kirkland voters agreed. So I'm a tax watchdog. Oh. And I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken. The next candidate is Kurt Dresner.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kurt. Thanks to CAN for putting on this forum, and thanks to you for coming tonight. I also want to thank Lake Washington United Methodist, not just for hosting the event, but for all the work they do for the people in our community, especially those with the most need. Last time I was here was earlier this year when my wife, daughter, and I came to prepare dinner for the guests at the Safe Parking Program. I'd attended several community dinners before, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to get to know some of the folks who are being left behind right here in our community. Face-to-face interactions are the critical antidote to the division rising in our country and in our community. It's harder for cartoonish misinformation and disinformation to infect our brains when we know our neighbors and community members as real people. This goes for people experiencing homelessness, and it goes for people who simply have different beliefs or a different understanding than we do. That's why I'm so grateful that you are here and engaged. Tonight, you're going to hear a lot about how long people have lived in Kirkland and how many Little League games they've coached and how big the numbers in their spreadsheets are. Those things are fine, but I encourage you to remember that we are picking leaders to build Kirkland's future, the Kirkland that our kids will inherit. That means we need leaders with a coherent, positive vision and a sincere desire to plan for the needs of that future. My vision is for a Kirkland that works for everyone, a Kirkland where seniors can age in place and where our kids can afford to live and continue the cycle of community. But we won't get those things without real leadership, and that leadership must be more than denial and obstruction. It must offer sincere and credible solutions to the issues that our community is facing. It must stand up for what is right and what is true, especially when it is hard. Real leadership listens, real leadership gets all the facts first, and real leadership stays true to its values like integrity, equity, opportunity, and community. That vision, that leadership, and those values are what I'll be bringing to the Kirkland City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kurt. The next candidate is John Pascal.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Can for organizing this. I know it's tough. It takes a lot of time to do this. You know, I've been raising my family here since 2001. I run a small business here in Kirkland, built my career as a state licensed civil engineer, helping communities across the state tackle their greatest transportation and land use challenges. And I brought that experience here to council because I want to give back to my community. I'm running again because I want to maintain more diverse and balanced viewpoints on the council. With increasing state control over land use decisions and a comprehensive plan that diminishes the value of our cherished neighborhoods, we need a respectful and open dialogue that's grounded in data and community voices. I will continue being that voice of reason, pushing for outcomes that make sense, that are accountable, and that truly serve our neighborhoods and our small businesses. When I was first elected 8 years ago, I did not imagine I'd be needing to do the following things. 1, protect the livability of our neighborhoods. 2, advocate for basic infrastructure like water pressure. 3, fight against excessive fees and regulations that increase the cost of housing. And 4, advocate for continued support of our neighborhood associations. These are some of the issues that are at stake in this election. I'm proud of the work that I've accomplished over the last 8 years together with all of you, improving emergency response times, expanding our parks, making major investments in transportation. But there's always more to do. I'll be working for safe streets, affordability, growth that fits our community, housing that keeps pace with infrastructure, strong public safety, and continued investments in our parks and open spaces. So above all, though, I will continue to listen to all of you. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much, John. The next candidate is Ken Oberman.
All right. Well, first of all, good evening, friends and neighbors, and thank you, Ken, for hosting the event tonight in the forum. I am Ken Oberman. My wife, Susie, and I chose Kirkland for a small town feel, walkable streets, welcoming parks, and neighbors who look out for one another. That is such a good spirit to have, and it is worth protecting. Kirkland is changing fast. We all see that every day. I live in downtown. I see it firsthand. More people, more traffic, fewer trees, and each neighborhood feels it. That's why I'm running for city council. Growth must fit our capacity with a plan that is tailored for the diversity of the neighborhoods in our city. I will keep Kirkland to get back the strategic plan on track. I spent decades leading cross-functional teams and creating strategic plans that we delivered on time with high-quality results that met the plan targets. We can do that here in Kirkland. We also need to be smart about our money. As a corporate VP, I've managed multi-billion-dollar budgets. I closely track revenue, expenses, project performance to ensure that we met our goals and got measurable return on money. I will bring the same fiscal responsibility to Kirkland. Negotiations and contracts are key components of any large organization. And I tell you, I've managed complex contracts and pricing agreements with Google, Microsoft, Apple, and many Fortune 500 companies. On City Council, I will leverage my decades of experience when I review each project and contract. One thing I want to get clear, in our city, you, the residents, you are the shareholders. And the dividends must be safe streets, reliable infrastructure, and community that grows without losing its character. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Our next candidate is Jay Arnold.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. An engaged community is key to Kirkland's success. I moved to Kirkland 35 years ago. I had an apartment in Totem Lake. My wife and I have been fortunate to be able to buy a house and raise a family here in Kirkland. Kirkland was the jewel of the East Side when I first moved here and remains so today. We have 3 daughters here in college and grad school, and I want them to have the same opportunities that I had. I'm proud of the work that we have done on council to open new parks and improve existing ones. We have taken a strategic approach to public safety with a new type of first responder, mental health professionals to respond to those in crisis, easing the burden on police and fire. I have protected landmark trees. I have championed energy efficient green buildings, and I have planned for Kirkland's future sustainability. We have more work to do to provide more housing options and make Kirkland affordable for everyone. Like we successfully did in Totem Lake, we need to promote development opportunities along 85th for jobs and housing near bus rapid transit, the area where would be the most intense development in Kirkland. We have major transportation projects finishing soon, and we need to turn the next set of plans into projects and deliver them sooner. And finally, we need transportation that works better for Kirkland with transit service that serves all neighborhoods with frequent transit. And most importantly, we must protect our values as a safe, welcoming, inclusive community. You can learn more about my campaign at votejarnold.com. I look forward to our discussion tonight on a variety of issues, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you very much, Jay. Our next candidate is Katie Malik.
Good evening, and I'd like to start by thanking CAN for hosting this and say hello to the greater Kirkland area, because so far all of the other forums have been local neighborhood forums. So I'm Katie, and I'm running for City Council. I've had the privilege of calling Kirkland home for the past 21 years, where my husband and I have raised our girls, and I'm the president of the Lake Washington PTSA. Before that, I grew up a short distance away in Bothell. I've witnessed firsthand how our community has evolved. I truly appreciate the challenges and changes that growth is placing on our neighborhoods and infrastructure. I'm running for City Council because I believe Kirkland deserves a leader who will be a voice for all of its residents and businesses. I will be different from the current council, which too often seems beholden to a narrow and particular political ideology. I am loyal to the people of Kirkland, and I'm here to represent you. I believe in practical, common sense solutions that reflect the values and needs of our diverse community. Transparency and understanding is at the core of my approach to leadership. Every decision we make as a city should be open, honest, and rooted in what's best for Kirkland. As your representative, I will always prioritize clear communication and work to ensure your voice is heard in every discussion. Over the last few years, I have attended in person many city council meetings and some commission meetings, as well as numerous neighborhood association meetings, learning and understanding what the challenges are in all of our unique neighborhoods. This gave me an opportunity to learn and connect with the residents and business owners impacted by council decisions. I did not use the last 2 months to cram. I am here today because I believe in Kirkland's future.
Thank you very much, Katie. Our next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
All right, thank you so much for organizing this event, Ken, and thanks for this church for allowing us to have this event here. I'm Shilpa Prem, and I'm running for Kirkland City Council, position number 3. You may be wondering why at this stage in my life I'm running for Kirkland City Council when I'm raising 2 elementary school children and working full-time as a lawyer. I care deeply about the kind of community we're building. I love this city and want to ensure Kirkland remains a vibrant and welcoming place for my kiddos, seniors, families, and everyone in between. One thing I've realized is that in order to make this happen, good, thoughtful, common sense decisions need to be made at the council level, and I believe I can bring this skill set to the table. A lot of what is required to serve effectively on City Council requires navigating complex laws, zoning codes, and policy frameworks that too often stand in the way of real solutions. This is precisely where my legal expertise will come to good use on Council. As a lawyer, I don't just understand the rules, I know how to carefully interpret them, change them, understand that each and every word that is used in an ordinance or a policy could have lasting impacts on our communities. Throughout my career, I've successfully advocated for regulatory changes through common sense and data-driven approaches. I'll bring that same determination to council. My values are summarized in 4 categories. Number 1, ensuring that we have open green spaces throughout Kirkland. That is why we are here. That's why we love it here. Create an adequate infrastructure and fast so that people can get from point A to point B, easy and without a headache. Creating more housing options and safety. Look, I know serving you starts with listening. The decisions we make on council impact your life, your community, and our home. I will work really hard to make sure that your voices are heard on council so that we can work together to keep Kirkland the treasure that it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shilpa.
Now it is time for the question and answer portion of the evening. Again, we will ask a question, then ask each of you in random order to respond. We will be providing you with a 60-second visual countdown to help you stay on track. I'm going to be upfront that we scheduled this pretty tightly, so we're going to be a little harsh when it comes to stopping you when the timeout expires. Please help us stay on track.
The first question is, with state-mandated density increases on the horizon, what is your plan to manage growth in a way that feels balanced and thoughtful without losing the character, calm, safety, and sense of community that brought so many longtime Kirkland residents here in the first place? Candidate Kurt Dresner, can you please start us off?
Sure. I don't think those things have to necessarily be in conflict. I've got a friend who lives in a city that is far denser than Kirkland. He can walk 5 minutes to work, he can walk 5 minutes to pick up groceries, and you can hear a pin drop on his street. So it's all about how we actually do this. And the comprehensive plan that we passed at the end of last year says that our plan is to concentrate most of our growth in our urban growth centers and our neighborhood community centers. Those are the places where we probably have to go bigger than we've currently gone. But in our neighborhoods, that's where middle housing comes in. That's where homes that are neighborhood scale, but can hold more people than the types of homes that we've been historically building can go. And with that, I've been to plenty of neighborhoods that have lots of middle housing. You wouldn't even know that that's what it was. You look at it and think, that's just a normal single family home, but it turns out there are 4 families living there. So I think with the smart use of middle housing and the concentration in our urban growth centers and community and commercial centers, we can achieve that. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. Our next candidate is John Pascal.
All right, thank you. So I've said this from the very beginning since we've been talking through the comprehensive plan last year that we need to continue to focus on our urban centers. That's why we've designated them as urban centers for higher density development. That includes mixed use, commercial and residential. And then also our commercial areas around the city. And that's something that I've been preaching for a long time since being on the Planning Commission. I helped pass the middle housing. There's a lot of capacity still in neighborhoods, and we're seeing that occur, but we need to continue to optimize that and make sure we're addressing the impacts that is causing, because we didn't plan neighborhoods for that type of density. So we need to course correct over time. We also need to emphasize the importance of infrastructure planning, making sure we have the infrastructure to support the density we see. And finally, we need to embrace the special qualities that built Kirkland. We need to build off of those rather than just discard them and move on. That's the foundation that Kirkland was built upon, and we need to continue moving forward on that.
Thank you, John. Our next candidate is Katie Malik.
So I also would focus on the urban growth centers, and because middle housing has not turned out to be cheap. It has not been the entry into home ownership that it was hoped to be. But also as we focus on density in our urban growth centers, we need to think about what we're putting in, because right now we're creating lots of big apartment buildings that turn people into chronic renters. What we really need to do is lobby the state and get them to lift the liability laws around condominiums so that we can get more condos, so that people moving into Kirkland can enter the housing market. So it's not a one or another, a home or an apartment. We need to give people options and a way to enter the real estate market.
Thank you, Katie. The next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
Yeah, so I think, how we passed the comprehensive plan, or not we, but the council, where we're centering growth around neighborhood centers and urban centers, I think that was a great compromise. And as we are developing, we will need to make sure that we have an adequate infrastructure in place and built as soon as the structure is built. So I do believe in concurrent in infrastructure building, and I do think that needs to be planned well in advance and as part of the permitting process. Traffic management and increased density should not mean increased congestion. I mentioned this in the forum yesterday. We do have some smart traffic lights, but I do think that we should include some new AI tools that have been out for a long period of time to reduce the congestion, to continue to make sure that the neighborhoods also feel like it's not a congested area or just not home. So I do think that those things need to be adequately planned.
Thank you, Shilpa. Our next candidate is Ken Oberman.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to sit down. So if you look at the website that I have, thoughtful growth has actually been one of the major themes that I've been pushing. I'm all for it, and you've heard it before. When you look at the urban centers, that makes sense to put growth, whether we're looking off of 85th Street, where we're over around Kirkland urban area and then Totem Lake makes good sense. But keep the communities. Make sure that when we do build in the residential areas, it's thoughtful growth. Make sure the infrastructure is there, but I'm not saying we need to put density community areas itself. So we need to plan thoughtfully. We need to make sure that we do look at the right infrastructure support, water, electricity, sewage, and look at those urban centers and making sure that we put the density where the density belongs and they can have ease to be able to travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. The next candidate is Neil Black. Oh, I'm sorry, Jay Arnold. I'm sorry. Too many words.
I threw out a curveball there. So when we talk about state mandates, there's two state mandates, the overall growth mandate and a requirement that we provide housing at a variety of different incomes. And we have to balance those two. Nobody talks about that second piece. The way that we put that together in our 20-year comprehensive plan is, yes, the urban centers, but the urban centers won't fit that need alone. You also need to have the neighborhood centers as mixed-use hubs where we've got the shops and services today, but also housing. And as you put more housing in those neighborhood shopping centers, you help preserving our neighborhood grocery stores. You're helping to support those local businesses because that housing means more customers. In addition, and then at the third tier, and those neighborhood shopping centers, you can think of them as a smaller scale of what I've talked about at Totem Lake, where you do have those housing and shops and services together. And then within our neighborhoods, it's the middle housing, which is really more smaller, affordable houses.
Thank you, Jay. Next candidate now is Neil Black.
I think what's interesting that you're hearing a lot is that the comp plan we adopted in December is kind of a community consensus. We should have future growth in our neighborhood centers and our urban growth centers. And then we should have a greater mix of smaller homes instead of McMansions being built in our community. Because what we're going to get, other than that, is we're going to get those McMansions. And all of that in the comp plan is coupled with the concurrent investment in infrastructure. And that's an important element of maintaining our quality of life. And that's included in the comp plan. And that includes everything from parks to school capacity to transportation. And there's a lot of things that this work accomplishes. It's everything from strengthening our small businesses with the oh my gosh, that was a quick, with our reliable workforce and any number of other issues that are solved.
Thank you, Neil.
When we do the concentrate future growth in our existing built environment.
Thank you, Neil. The next candidate is Ken McKenzie.
The comprehensive plan is a policy document. It's a bunch of ideas, which that's a good starting point, but there's nothing in there about law. There's nothing that controls what you can actually build or where you can actually build it. So I propose that our first move is to pay close attention to our zoning, which is the next step. And our policy document is massively vague in some key areas. It talks about 10-minute neighborhoods. It never defines what a 10-minute neighborhood is. And as near as anybody who looked at it closely could figure out, a 10-minute neighborhood covers the entire city. So this whole idea that you can only, that we're actually concentrating urban growth in known areas is bunk. So what we have to do is straighten that out, define 10-minute neighborhood, define what we mean by urban growths, and pass good zoning.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay, the next question is, Kirkland's community survey, which runs every 2 years, shows residents consistently prioritizes safety, traffic enforcement, parks and core infrastructure like water, roads and power. There's a growing sense that these basics are being sidelined in favor of council-backed pet projects and long-term plans that aren't widely supported. How would you ensure the city prioritizes what people care about most? We'll start off with Shilpa Prem.
I think the way to figure out what is important to residents is to listen to them. So the number one priority would be to really understand from each of the neighborhoods that we have in Kirkland, what their top priorities are, issues are, and make sure that those are handled and those are on our priority list. You know, I was in the Highlands this last week, and I spoke to Connie Chapman on who's the owner of the Angel Swim facility. And, you know, I heard her complaints about, you know, some of the business implications of the pressure issue. And I think, you know, listening to people like her, like other members of the various neighborhoods, and bringing in on our list of priorities, that's how we would do that. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Shilpa. Next candidate is Katie Malik.
So the survey said that the residents are prioritizing water, safety, roads, and infrastructure. And so what I would do is prioritize water, safety, roads, and infrastructure. Yeah, and I have also been up into the Highlands. In fact, Ken McKenzie and I collaborated to really activate the neighborhood around their water pressure issue, because the neighborhood has been coming to council meetings for months now, bringing up the issue with their water pressure that's been going on since April of 2024. So I think we really just need to redirect and focus on those fundamentals.
Thank you. Next candidate is Kurt Dresner.
Yeah, so this is an area where I think it's really great that we have a state law that requires us to have our infrastructure be built out concurrently with development. There, as far as water and the performance of our intersections and the other pieces of infrastructure that are vital, we're required to have those before we can issue building permits. And that's a great thing because it means that we can make long-term plans that give us time to get that infrastructure in place and that allow us to site things where those things are even possible. So I think we should be complying with that law, and I think we should just be thinking forward about the plans of where we're going to put things and making sure we have those things in place.
Thank you. Next candidate is John Pascal.
Thank you. I'd continue building off of our community survey and using that to lead where we're going to prioritize investments, and that continues to be transportation. That's something I've been focusing on since I started on council, investing in those areas, really fixing our bottlenecks, and responding to the community. I think we can do a better job at that. The other thing that showed up on that survey was planning and land use, and we're talking about that a lot tonight. And I'd say that, yes, the law says one thing, but you have to implement it. Okay, you can have a plan, but you actually have to follow the plan, and then you have to implement it. And we can do a much better job on implementing and making sure that we have the infrastructure and the services to support our land use. And that's where we have a lot of work to do still.
Thank you. Next candidate is Ken McKenzie.
We have a pretty significant problem in Kirkland, as far as I can see, concerning the execution of infrastructure projects. When you look at the effort to rebuild the intersection of Lake and Kirkland Avenue downtown, we just made a mess out of it. When we set out to solve a water flow restriction problem in the Highlands neighborhood, we created a water pressure problem. So we went from a situation where the fire department had a problem or thought they would have a problem if a fire broke out to people can't flush their toilets and use their showers at the same time. And that's just inexcusable. When we look at what happened with the rebuild of 100, it went on and on and on. So my move is, let's straighten out our operations of the city so that the projects that we decide to execute actually get executed.
Thank you. Next candidate is Neil Black.
There's a saying that if you want to understand your organization or your city's priorities, look at their budget. Over 50 for Kirkland. We've reduced crime in every category. And I've said this a lot recently in staff, that I want to see us. Maybe this one has a low battery. Do my best. I think I had about 30 seconds, I suppose. Oh yeah, this is much better. One of the things I've talked a lot about publicly and also with staff is that as much as important as corridor investments have been in transportation in Kirkland, I want our new focus to be elevating our intersections that we know based on our comp plan. That's where growth's going to happen in our neighborhood centers, that we're concentrating on those. There's no way that's that we're concentrating our investment in transportation in those intersections. So I think this is an area of success for City of Kirkland. I'm proud of what we've accomplished.
Okay. Thank you. Next candidate is Ken Oberman.
All right. When it comes to looking at how we want to prioritize, I actually agree. I mean, we've got the community survey that comes out, and so it's pretty straightforward how we look at it. The second thing, CAN is hosting this event today. We get all the community information coming from all the different community associations. That should be taken as a priority to be able to take a listen to what all the groups are saying, consolidate that information, and prioritize it and get it back out. End of the day, our infrastructure is one of the key issues that's been brought up. We need to prioritize. We need to get it fixed. I also agree with what John said earlier. Plan, implement. Make sure that we put the infrastructure in place that supports the direction we want to go. You need to make sure the essential services are working and not stressed out, especially as you get into the wintertime and the storms start to come up and you go 5 days without electricity. That shouldn't be happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate is Jay Arnold.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought up the survey. When we look at the budget, we put it into what we call the Kirkland Quad, which measures the things that people think are most important and how they rank how we're doing. And that really does drive the budget process. That's why we have done things like the investments that we've done in fire, where we have hired new firefighters to improve response times, and we're opening new fire stations, and remodel the existing ones to be able to protect you better in an earthquake. Now, for the things that we're talking about, water, this is something we're going to fix. The challenge that we did around fire flow was something we absolutely had to do for public safety and for water quality. I recognize that there are a small number of homeowners that were impacted, and we are going to be fixing that, whether we deal with that individually or not. It's not an overall growth problem. It actually improved the situation in the Highlands with that particular investment. Transportation is something we need to continue to work on, and that's what I talked about in my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Our next question is, what do you think are Kirkland's top transportation priorities, and how would you balance them with keeping our neighborhoods livable, quiet, and safe? Candidate John Pascal, would you please start us off?
Well, that's transportation is something that I'm passionate about, and that's what kind of led me to council. So the first thing that I do is invest in neighborhood scale safety projects. So those are things like traffic calming, crosswalks, sidewalks, and things, so that, because especially now with the change in how people work and a lot more people working from home, you've seen a lot more people wanting to walk and bike and get to different places than the car. But we can't forget about the vehicle and transit. We have to continue to improve our corridors so that we can fix those bottlenecks, improve reliability and congestion in those key spots, particularly to connect into our urban centers and to our freeways. And then we also need to continue to focus on transit. Our transit system isn't working as well as it should today, and it hasn't since COVID. And we need to reevaluate how people use transit and making sure we're using our transit dollars most efficiently, our service hours.
Thank you, John. Next candidate is Kurt Dresner.
So the thousands of doors that I've knocked over the summer and fall, I've spoken to a lot of folks, and I've heard a lot of concerns that folks have. And one of the ones that I hear most frequently is, I'm tired of folks speeding on my street. And the one place where I didn't hear that was when I was knocking doors along Slater Avenue, where the city's recently done a bunch of improvements to help calm traffic along those streets and make them safer. And so that means, I look at that and I think we know how to do that. We need to do more of it. We need to make more of our streets safer. We need to make more of our neighborhoods tranquil and enjoyable places to be in. There's this saying that cities aren't loud, cars are loud. And I think, like John said, we obviously can't forget about the vehicles. I mean, I drive a car, but we need to make sure we're giving folks choices. We need to make sure that the 50% of people who say they're interested but concerned when it comes to riding a bike have a chance to do that because they feel safe. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. The next candidate is Jay Arnold.
Thank you. When I look at transportation infrastructure and our road system, it really is about safety and flow. And I think investing in roundabouts is something that could really make a difference. We've seen it along 132nd, along the interstate, where that has really improved flow through that. It also improves safety. When we talk about safety, I appreciate the comments about the neighborhood safety program. Two problems with that right now. that's driven by the neighborhood associations, and we have neighborhoods without active neighborhood associations. So I'd like to expand expand to other groups that can propose neighborhood safety projects. And the budget hasn't kept up with those particular projects. So I'd like to increase in that area. Around transit, we need to take transit into our own hands and look at what we can do ourselves within the city. Bellevue's done an interesting thing with a circulator shuttle that they're running around downtown. I'd like to be able to connect all of our neighborhoods with that. I think that would be very interesting as well.
Thank you, Jay. The next candidate is Ken Oberman.
Right. Great. Well, I think many of you know I live in downtown. So I feel the cars. I see the speeding. When I'm in the crosswalks, a lot of times the cars won't even stop for me. So I feel the impact every day, and I'm always looking at what kind of solutions we can do, whether is it brighter areas in the crosswalks? Is it more security that we need to put in place? At the end of the day, you know, people do drive. Their work hours, they can't take the transit all the time. They got to get in early. They've got to come home late. They've got kids they got to take to school. So we have to be able to accommodate the cars on the road. We can also look, so that goes into the infrastructure conversations we had earlier today, what we can do to improve. The second part, when I look at the transit, and I look at, we've got to do a better job because the transit buses right by me in the downtown Kirkland are 95% empty all the time. Nobody on the buses. How do we get people to take transit? They're taking their cars. So again, I'm in downtown. I see it. We have to fix it.
Thank you, Ken. Our next candidate is Ken McKenty.
The problem that I would attack first is Metro. Our city has a very poor relationship with Metro, as far as I can tell, as a former Metro user. I was a daily rider of the 255 to downtown Seattle. And my daughter was a daily rider of a route that went up Market Street to Inglemoor High School. The 255 has been cut in half. It's no longer useful to get downtown. And the bus that she was on was just terminated. The route was taken out. So Kirkland government is not doing, in my view, a good job of negotiating with Metro. It needs to step up its act there. And I would be really interested in enhancing that relationship so that we get what we need out of Metro.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Neil Black.
There's a couple things that are related. One is what's it take to get people to ride a bus? The bus has to be speedy, has to be reliable, has to be safe, has to be clean, and there have to be people to ride it. There's another connection. Housing, if there's one thing I've learned, that housing and transportation are closely related together. You can't have housing without the transportation infrastructure, and housing can solve a lot of the transportation problems. Well, I'm going to harken back to something I mentioned earlier, which is concentrating our future investments in mobility through intersections that we know are going to be problematic intersections in the future as we build up our neighborhood centers. But when we concentrate future growth in our existing built environment, and within that, we concentrate our future growth in our neighborhood centers and urban growth centers, we do things like making transit more effective and efficient with more people able to get where they want to go. So these things are all related together. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. Our next candidate is Katie Malik.
So I too was a daily rider of the 255, and it used to run every 7 minutes, and it was full. What was also there were other interlinking bus routes, and so people would come from other areas of Kirkland and then get on the 255, which, as Ken did point out, is only half of a route now, and it doesn't go to downtown Seattle. With COVID, they eliminated many of our bus routes, and our city has not been advocating with the county to get those bus routes back. Finn Hill is a transit desert. It's impossible to get anywhere from there. I've seen people put on a map to get from Finn Hill to Linwood takes 2.5 hours by bus. We need to make sure we've got a robust infrastructure of metro buses to provide transportation, to give people options that will enable people to get off the road. We don't need more density to get those buses back because people were using them with less density prior.
Thank you, Katie. Our next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
Yes, I would prioritize all forms of transportation and make sure that we're prioritizing everything. So what that means is Metro, we should prioritize negotiating further with Metro to get more routes and more stops, because no one's going to ride Metro unless it's convenient and it's easy. I also very much support a circulator to be able to get from point A to point B. Bike lanes, sidewalks. So if people want to bike. If people want to walk. But really making sure that we have an adequate infrastructure to support those forms of transportation. And finally, for cars, I think we really should implement some AI tools for traffic light management. They have been said to reduce traffic in Pittsburgh, for an example. They implemented one in 47 different intersections, and they were able to reduce wait times by 40% and emissions by 20 to 21%. So these are existing tools out there that we need to use to update our tools. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa.
The next question is, many long-time residents have raised concerns about the increased cost of living in Kirkland. What would you do to help them stay in their homes and age in place comfortably? Share your ideas for keeping Kirkland affordable for those who've built their lives here. The first candidate is Jay Arnold.
Well, affordability starts with housing. And as I've knocked on doors, I have talked with several seniors that were in houses that they were ready to move from, but did not have opportunities within Kirkland to stay in their community in a living situation that would work better for them. And I think that's where affordability overall starts with the housing issue, where we've got housing for all ages and stages of life. And so that's part of the piece of saying, how do you do things at different ages? You need apartments when you're starting out. We need places for working families, our teachers, nurses, retail and restaurant staff, and then places as we grow older. For people staying in place, I'm a big advocate for something we heard from the Senior Council, which is universal design.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Next candidate is Ken Oberman.
Great, thank you. This is a really good question, because when I look at where I'm at today, moving into Kirkland, we made the choice to downsize from our home. It wasn't because we got pushed out and we couldn't afford it. So we're lucky. I've also knocked on many doors, and many of the folks that I've talked to is a little bit different story. I'm only here for another year or two because I can't afford it anymore. The taxes keep going up. My property taxes keep going up. So, you know, whatever's going to happen in city council happens because I can't afford it here anymore. So there's a lot of people leaving. What we need to do, and I will agree with Jay on one thing, there is opportunities to go to many different places if they can afford to do it, and they can't. So we need to find ways to help these folks stay in their homes, whether it's through some tax breaks or other mechanisms to help support them through these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Kurt Resner.
All right, this is a fantastic question. I've knocked on doors of folks who wanted to upgrade their house. They wanted to move to something that was, you know, they were having kids and they wanted to move to something that had extra rooms, but they couldn't do that because the house they were in had appreciated so much that the taxes they would have to pay if they sold it were going to be absolutely crippling. So instead they're going to spend $300,000 to redevelop their own house to add an addition on there when really all they want to do is to move into an existing house that fits their needs better. And I've talked to folks who are on the other side of that. I talked to a guy who's lived here since 1990. He owns his house outright. All of his friends, all of his wife's friends, they're all moving away, and he's thinking about moving away because he wants to downsize but stay in his neighborhood, and all they're building in his neighborhood are giant homes that he can't afford. So We need to be making more options for folks, houses at different prices, houses of different sizes, so that folks can stay in the communities where they've built their lives and put down their roots.
Thank you, Kurt. Next candidate is John Pascal.
Thank you. So one of the first things is we have to recognize as we continue to upzone our neighborhoods, we're increasing land values. And those land values then result in higher property taxes. And if many of you have received your property tax bill this year, you've seen that your land value has gone up considerably, your structure value has gone down. That's a direct result of how we zone and how we carry out land use. Second thing is we need to continue to stay focused on housing variety, housing options all over of all scales, and stop putting fees on top of housing. Fees on any type of housing increases housing costs across the board. Finally, we need to be looking at utility costs. Our utility costs continue to increase, and we're not pushing back at our regional partners. We need to start looking at that more prevalently because that's just an incremental cost that actually is becoming very significant monthly costs for all our seniors each day. And then finally, just looking at all the incremental costs that the city passes on to our property owners and our residents, those all need to be considered.
Okay. Thank you, John. Next candidate is Ken McKenzie.
The first observation I have is taxes. The second is taxes, and the third is taxes. Utility taxes are huge in Kirkland. And it used to be, for example, everybody paid a little telephone tax, and our telephone bill was $20 a month, and it wasn't much. Well, telephone tax includes cable. It's really expensive now. So we need to get that under control. We need to understand how much pain we're causing people with our taxes on utilities. And then I want to pick up on what John was saying about property tax. It used to be that the balance between your building value and your property value was pretty even. Every time the city talks about adding more stories to what you can build on your property, it drives up the cost of land, the value of the land, and your property tax goes up.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Neil Black.
So I'll just start off with saying that this is the number one, affordability is the number one issue I hear among longtime residents of Kirkland, and especially seniors. There's three things that I think that we need to focus on. There's multiple things, by the way, but this is sort of top three. One is we need to foster a greater mix of smaller, affordable homes in Kirkland, both new construction and also preserving our naturally occurring smaller, affordable homes that are existing homes. We also need a strong local economy. We need to make sure we're fostering a strong local economy so that we can have a broader tax base and the burden on private property owners doesn't have to be so great. The burden on private property owners in Kirkland is higher than Bellevue and Redmond in part because of the size of our commercial tax base. And one other thing no one has mentioned yet that's really important to me, this is how my mom affords to live near Kirkland, right across the border in Bellevue, and that's condominium conversions. Older, smaller apartments being converted in condos, that's work we need to do at the state level. As chair of the legislative work group, that's work we're doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. Next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
Yeah, so displacement, there's really two sides of the coin here. One is for renters. Rents rise faster than wages. That's when displacement occurs. Luckily, the state did pass a law that caps the rent rates by 10%, the increase by 10%. But given the newness of this law, I do want to make sure that I'm continuing to evaluate what the impacts are of this law. Are people being housed? Are more people being housed or not? Number one, and also whether it's stifling development of affordable housing or not, and then adjust if needed. The other side of the coin is homeowners, especially for first-time or individuals that want to age in place. The challenge is access. Rising home prices and limited inventory pushes a lot of people out, and I've heard that a lot while I've been door knocking. I support deferring property taxes for older individuals, reducing the risk of developing condominiums and zoning reforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa. Next candidate is Katie Malik.
So a lot of the policy that's coming from the state is what's driving our affordability. The Washington Growth Management Act drew a circle and said all development shall be in this area. Supply and demand economics means that if you cram more and more people onto a set piece of land, that the value will continue to rise. I did mention condos earlier as an opportunity for people to downsize, but capital gains tax usually inhibits people from being able to do that because they lose so much of the profitability of their home that it cuts into what they're able to now purchase. Also, another thing that's driving cost in housing is rent control. Anybody who's lived in San Francisco knows what rent control does to rent. You will be living next to somebody who's been there since the 1980s and pays $400 while you pay $4,000.
Thank you, Katie. Our next question is, over the past decade, King County has spent over $5 billion on homelessness, most of that in recent years. At the same time, King County reports that more than 5,000 subsidized affordable housing units are now sitting empty because operators are unable to compete with market rate rents. Meanwhile, Kirkland residents worry about community impact, both positive and negative, and a lack of fiscal responsibility. What would you do differently to ensure help actually reaches vulnerable people while addressing the concerns of neighbors? And tell us how you would define success and accountability here. Candidate Ken Oberman, can you please start us off?
Sure. I mean, you bring up a really tough question because this is one that I think that every community has been wrestling, and pretty much every state in the U.S. also wrestles with. I see it again, I live downtown, so I see a lot of homelessness, even in our area. And it's a very difficult situation to watch. It's difficult when you're approaching and trying to work with these individuals and get them help. So it is good to see that we have a team that's in place in Kirkland that actually helps these vulnerable individuals get some of the needed help there. I'm a big proponent. I do believe we need to have facilities, especially for women, children, families, and I'm supportive of that. Support to get them help, to help get these individuals off the street, those that are in most of need, and get them into an environment that helps them begin to thrive and move on and back into the economy. Because there's not one level of homelessness. And I think a lot of times we try to bucketize everything into this one bag, and one doesn't fit all. You've got those who want help, you've got those who don't want help, and you've got families that are just in need, folks that are just outside here that we have to take care of.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Next candidate is Jay Arnold.
Thank you. Well, I don't know about the 5,000 number that you mentioned with the county. It'd be a great question when you host a county executive debate on this. But let's talk about what the county is doing. And one of the things that is something that's really important here is when we're dealing with homelessness, it cannot be a story where we're just telling people to move along. It's got to be, where are they moving to? And we have people in our community, Kirklanders, right here in the parking lot living in their cars. We have people in long-term shelter. We have Kirklanders that are living in a rotating tent city that goes from different churches. And one of the things that the county is doing when you hear about permanent supportive housing is providing homes and supportive services for those people. And so when the county's facility opens this year, I'm excited about how that moves forward. It's been successful elsewhere in keeping 95% of the people off the street.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Katie Malik.
So from what I understand, Kirkland has allocated their tax base that we voted for to provide housing for the homeless to the county. And we are relying on the county to use those dollars to provide shelter and services for our homeless population. Unfortunately, we've all seen that they have not created checks and balances in their accounting system, and there's $1.8 billion of our tax revenue that has gone unaccounted for and is not helping the homeless that we needed. It was designed to help. What we need to do is really hold the county's feet to the fire. We need to make sure they have accounting systems in place with controls and ensure that the money is being spent appropriately. And in addition to that, I would advocate that we need to put systems in place to assist folks who are homeless to get them out of homelessness in a meaningful way.
Thank you, Katie. Next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
Yeah, I think the team that has been dedicated in Kirkland to evaluate the need is really critical and important because they will be the feet on the ground to see what level of homelessness there is and make sure that it is addressed accordingly. And I think solving the homelessness problem is really going to be a multifaceted approach. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. I think permanent supportive housing is one option. You know, it's not just the right thing to do from a compassionate standpoint, but it also saves money. It actually saves money. You know, King County reported that there were 17% less ER visits and 33% shorter hospital stays with the implementation of permanent supportive housing. We can strengthen our partnership with Arch to increase contributions if need be, right? If need be. And so this is all based off of what our team actually evaluates and what the results are of that evaluation. Zoning, providing inclusionary zoning and in lieu fees, flexibility for developers if need be, and then partnering with public and private sector to increase the funding for homelessness.
Thank you, Shilpa. The next candidate is Neil Black.
Okay, well, what I would say about this one is the importance of an unbroken chain of tethered together services to solve the problem of homelessness. And a weak link anywhere in that chain is going to cause us to fail. We're going to fail individuals and we're going to fail our community. One of the things we repeatedly hear from those who provide temporary shelter in our city and in the region is that the weakest link right now, still to this day, is that link between temporary shelter and a traditional permanent home. And that's where permanent supportive housing with 24/7 wraparound services does come in. That's the bridge between the temporary shelter and living a fully stable life. And again, this is work I'm really proud of that we're doing today. It saves lives. It is healthy for our community. It gets people's lives back on track. And as Shilpa said, it saves us money in the long run.
Thank you, Neil. The next candidate is Ken McKenzie.
So what I heard in the question was, why is that other system so broken? There was a question about King County and why King County is having trouble in all kinds of ways, wasting money, having facilities that are vacant and unused. And I can't solve King County's problem. I'd really like to, but I can't. So I think that Kirkland has to find a way to be complementary and work around the King County problem. And I think the starting point for me with that is you don't warehouse people. You don't just put them someplace and figure that they'll get better. You actually have to have some sort of program, some sort of plan for people that are in a government provided facility, a home, so that they can move on to that next stage.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Kurt Dresner.
All right, well, it's important to remember that homelessness comes in lots of different flavors. The homelessness that we think about when we think of the stereotype is what we would call chronic homelessness, right? That's folks that have been out on the street for a long time. They actually really only represent a really small fraction of homeless folks. Most homeless folks, or most folks that are experiencing homelessness at any one time are experiencing temporary homelessness. They're folks who have, they've sustained an injury, they've lost a job, and getting them back on their feet is the top priority. And in general, I would say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. at the very top, we need to work on overall affordability because overall affordability is the one thing that is most correlated with homelessness rate. Beyond that, we need to make sure that folks who are teetering on the edge can stay in their homes so they don't fall into homelessness. 2/3 of folks who are homeless and have drug addiction problems get that after they become homeless. So if we can stop them from becoming homeless in the first place, we can save ourselves a lot of trouble and save them a lot of trouble as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. Next candidate is John Pascal.
So I think we all know that this is a really challenging situation. There's no single solution. I think you've heard that from everyone up here. I'd say that I'm really proud of Kirkland and its homelessness action team. And that team is really about connecting folks to services, looking for those ways that we connect people to at least try to get them the services that they need to change their trajectory. But beyond that, we need to continue working with our partners. We do pay our tax goes to King County. We need to hold King County accountable. We need to work with them. We need to continue to work with them. But we need to track how that money's spent. And I think with that recent audit that was done and showing that that money wasn't being used as well as it could be, we can't just turn a blind eye and say, hey, they're doing it. We don't have to. We need to continue working and holding them responsible. And then if it isn't working, we need to figure out how we can take that responsibility on and help. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Matt. So if we got more questions submitted to us than we can actually fit in tonight, and I do want to thank everybody, whether you're here or online, for submitting. But we got one question that really stood out, and I'm going to paraphrase it. I am a homeowner of 10 years in Totem Lake. I have experienced an increase in crime and vagrant activity in my neighbourhood. As a taxpayer and single woman living alone, I like to know what has been done. It is a powerful question. Interestingly, while crime rates in Kirkland are statistically down, it doesn't mean that people feel safer. Whether it's perception or reality, it's a real concern, and it's up to our city leaders to address this. What's your plan to reduce vagrancy and crime in Kirkland's neighbourhood, and how will you help restore residents' confidences that Kirkland is still a quiet place to call home? One thing that we do say is, for this question, we actually put the resident in touch with Kirkland Police to voice their concerns, and specific actions have been taken. But we'll start off with Katie Malik.
Can you just get that question down really quick? So basically, safety, crime. I've noticed it also as a Kirkland resident. I remember the days where you were afraid to jaywalk in Kirkland because you would get a ticket. Kirkland's grown. We're now dealing with bigger city problems, and I spoke with a police officer not too long ago, and our benchmark is actually we're down 16 police officers for a national benchmark. So what I would do is invest in additional police officers, because I know a lot of our police force is dedicated to retail theft, and there's less opportunity for them to be out and mixing with the neighbors and being visible.
Thank you, Katie. Next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
Yeah, I think we should continue to invest in programs like the Regional Crisis Response Agency, where we're focused on diverting precious police time and fire department time to more crime prevention. That's number one. I also think that, if we are hearing about more issues of crime throughout the city, that we have an adequate measure for them to be able to communicate that to council so that they know that these issues exist, and make sure that we are mitigating those issues as quickly as possible. I think the fact that we're down 16 officers, I would want to understand why. Why are we having a difficult time recruiting officers? I don't know if it's affordable housing, and they're not able to live where they work. But if we can figure that out, I would want to make sure that we have some appropriate mitigations to be able to recruit police officers into our community.
Thank you, Shilpa. Next candidate is John Pascal.
All right. Well, that's distressing to hear that from that community member, and those are things that and this is why I do this is to try to figure out how to solve those problems. And perception is reality, whether it's high or low or whatever, the perception and is there for that person. And so, first off, we got to enforce our laws all the time. We don't pick and choose which laws we enforce. We got to support our police department to continue to attract a good law enforcement. We need to work with our partners, and we've done that on retail theft across the region, and we've actually lowered that. We need to continue to support our PROAC unit that investigates those types of crimes, and we need to track progress. And we have that with online dashboards. And so I'd encourage folks to look at that. We look at that, and when we do see things, we take action. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next candidate is Kurt Resner.
Yeah, Brad, I also want to thank you for pointing out that the perception matters, right? You can't tell someone that their problem isn't their problem. If they think it's their problem, then it's their problem. And we do spend quite a bit on public safety. As Neil mentioned earlier, I think something like 24% of our budget goes to police. But we can be doing other things, right? We can be doing innovative things like our RACER program, where we have crisis response that frees up police resources to make sure that they can get on site faster, they can respond more effectively. It also is about creating relationships with the community and making sure that our police can have a presence in our community without making the community feel threatened, and in fact, the opposite, making the community feel reassured, like they're a partner to that community. And then just simple things like lighting. I hear from so many folks that say like, hey, like it's dark and I don't feel safe. We can put lights in. Things like that are easy to do and make a difference in the perception of safety. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. Next candidate is Ken McKenzie.
My first observation is I don't understand. So my move would be go hang out with this person for a while and find out more about what's on their mind, because they define some pretty general things, and I just don't understand the problem yet. And what I learned in school and in my professional life is that when I don't understand the problem, I can't solve it. So that would be my first move. And then my second, if I just make some guesses, I definitely have to pick up on what John Pascal said, and we have to enforce our laws. So it could be that somebody's just not getting the right message about what's expected of them. And then we have to offer help if help is what's required. So I would understand the problem better, have an interest in enforcing our laws, and then I want to be helpful to the individuals that are involved.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Neil Black.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if crime rates are down across the board in all categories. If you had a crime committed against you, then crime's not down for you. So that's a really important observation. For that person, crime is certainly up. But I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish in Kirkland. Again, we spent over 50% of our budget on all forms of public safety. The successes that we're having, this is not by happenstance. This is intentional work that we do to invest in public safety, in our police, and in our fire, and in our mobile integrated health, and in our regional crisis response agency, and the whole range of services that are in place to make sure our community, individuals, and our community as a whole is safe. We keep doing that work. There's a little bit of an unfair question for some of our candidates because they're new, but I had a conversation with the chief of police. We're not down 16 officers. He confirmed that we are retaining and hiring and retaining the best officers. Officers want to come to work for here. We're fully staffed. And also traffic citations are way up over the previous 4 years.
Cool. Thank you, Neil. Next candidate is Ken Oberman.
All right, thank you. So the first part I would look at is, everything goes back to analytics. You've got to look, if there's being reports of issues in the different communities, we need to track it, take a look, see if there's an increase. Then we need to understand why they increased. Do we need to deploy more resources? So I'm going to jump a little bit here, But we need to make sure that we are 100% staff, number one. Number two, we got to look at the increase in population. As we continue to grow, we have to grow our resources in accordance to the population growth. I do think we're seeing an increase because I'm one of those victims. Twice in this last year, first 7 years, almost nothing. Last year, our building got hit, and then our personal storage unit got hit. So we are seeing more people. We have to make sure that to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Jay Arnold.
Well, first, I'm glad that, Brad, you mentioned for the person that submitted the question that you link them with some resource. And I think the first piece is when we're dealing with the perception of safety, we've got to make sure people know that the resources are out there. Because people are not going to call, are understandably hesitant to call 911 when it's not particularly an emergent situation. So being able to say, what's the homelessness line to call to report somebody homeless? Where's the opportunities for online police reporting? What about the police non-emergency number? And I think, I made a note, I think that's something we should put into the next Kirklander newspaper, which goes out to all residents to say, here are the resources out there. Secondly, while we have talked about some of the areas of emphasis that we've done in the police department, like the retail theft and the PROACT unit. And PROACT is really about proactively going after the theft rings and the folks probably that were going after your storage unit, Ken. But beyond that, I think the next area of emphasis has got to be hiring more neighborhood resource officers to be more proactive in our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Jay. Our next question is, tensions between citizens with differing political views have been especially high over the last year at all levels of government. Local politics here in Kirkland are no exception. Too often, debates have slipped into dismissiveness rather than genuine discussion. If elected, how would you help encourage a more respectful, civil conversations and keep Kirkland united as one community? Candidate Ken McKenzie, can you please start us off?
Let's see. This is hard. Listening. Getting people comfortable with listening is I think the key. That you have to understand before you speak. So I'll start with the council. How would I get a group of 7 people to get along better, to be more friendly with their community? And I think the answer is to help them with some training about the importance of listening. Because I think that often in Kirkland, and one of the issues I've had is that the community shows up and talks to the council, and the answer is thank you very much and move on. In 2008, I saw a video of a council meeting where there was actual conversation, and that seemed like a really good thing.
Thank you, Ken. The next candidate is Neil Black.
Grace, showing each other grace, giving each other understanding. We're all sort of experts in our own fields, right? And if we can all appreciate that our experience are going to be different, that our expertise is not going to be the same, we can give everybody a little bit of grace and understanding and listening in that regard. I think something that this is just for me in the last 18 months, we need to be able to, as a local government, we need to be able to about something that's big. And then we need to take that, we need to be able to shape it and twist it and scale it down and make it what'll work for all of us. But we can't be the boogeyman. We need, am I having trouble with my mic again? Gosh, jeez. I thought I was doing the level thing that I was told to do. I'll just wrap up. I think it's important for us as a community to be okay to innovate to be able to think big and have those conversations and give us all grace as we ultimately shape something down by listening to the community, by listening to the experts, and come up with a solution that works for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Next candidate is John Pascal.
Well, thank you. So the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about this is at the council level. We need to lead by example. If we get along and respect one another and have civil debates and open discussion, then it's easier to expect that on the community rather than vice versa. And I've always fiercely defended the nonpartisan aspect of this position, and I think we need to continue to do that, and I'm not seeing that as much over the years since I was first elected. On council, we had an unwritten rule that we wouldn't get involved in each other's campaigns. That was decades long, and this is the first election where we're in each other's business. And guess what? That's causing division. That is true, Neil. That's causing division in this election, and you're seeing it in the community now. So we need to understand that at the council level, that then goes down into the community. I see it. I just wish others would see it.
Thank you, John. Next candidate is Kurt Dresner.
Yeah, I think I want to echo what John said, that you do need collegiality and you do need trust on council. And that means when you work with other folks on council and you negotiate with other folks on council, that you do so in good faith, and that you understand that compromise means compromise. It doesn't mean throwing other people under the bus for a few bits of applause. Within the community, I think, like I said in my opening statement, I think face-to-face is really important. It's very easy to see someone else as just a bunch of pixels on a screen when you're interacting via social media. And I think showing up and meeting people face-to-face is a great way to understand that these other folks are human. This has happened in various forms of public engagement. I remember participating in the sustainability focus group for the comp plan back in February of 2023. I talked with a bunch of folks that I otherwise never would have met, who come from all sorts of different political backgrounds, all sorts of different demographics. We were all working toward a common cause, and it was a great way to build those connections, and I think we need more of that.
Thank you, Kurt. Next candidate is Katie Malik.
So I always, when I'm managing teams and doing change management, that's always a really difficult experience, and you have lots of different opinions that come to the table. And I think it's always important to keep in mind that we all have been shaped by our life experiences, and we have our opinions, our thoughts, our skills from those different life experiences, and we need to respect those. And it's happening in the community where people are being demonized for having a different opinion. They were getting trolled on social media, and that's I believe it really starts with the council and really being transparent and being open to others' opinions and not showing disdain to your fellow council members when they disagree with you and you vote a different way, because it's okay to vote a different way, and it's okay to talk to folks who are from a different political party as well.
Thank you, Katie. Shilpa Prem?
Yeah, I mean, these problems that we are dealing with are really hard problems. And there are a lot of different solutions, and there are a lot of different people that have different opinions on what the right solution is. So I do think having in-person, two-way discussions beats every type of discussion you can have. Because then suddenly you see the human aspect of the issues a person is dealing with. And I have seen this throughout, I mean, knocking on thousands of doors and meeting thousands of voters. I have firsthand seen just the variety of issues people are going through. And these are real problems. So being in front of a person and absorbing that is a very different experience that I think we should really continue to do on during campaigning, but also on council. And I agree with what everyone has said about council members being able to get along, because that's the only way we're going to get something done. Otherwise, it just delays the process and moves progression down the road, which is not what we want. So getting along with your colleagues is super critical, and I can say I'm a pretty nice person, so hopefully, people would be able to get along with me, and I get along with them.
Thank you, Shilpa. Next candidate is Jay Arnold.
Well, it's important that the council lead, and the way that we come together on council is to build a consensus. Often when you see on many issues, we have 7-0 votes, not because we all agree, because we have done the work to get to a place where we agree. Getting involved in each other's races is not something that we have taken lightly. It came out of the comprehensive plan where council was working very hard to build a consensus around around our work, and in fact took every one of John Pascal's amendments in an effort to try to build consensus on something that we can agree on. And when, after doing that work, after trying to find consensus, many of us on council were extremely disappointed on John's vote after that, given the conversations that had happened. So, I think the leadership goes with that and setting that example and saying how you're going to get to yes. Because it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to just vote no. It's harder to find a solution.
Thank you, Jay. Next candidate is Ken Oberman.
Yeah, I almost got a smile on this one because at the end of the day, it's not that complicated. It's communication. It's having respect. It's working with each other. To me, when you have diversity of different opinions, that's actually a strength. And we should use it to have the conversations, to bring the issues up and address them, not call an individual out because they disagree with it. I think that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. You get in a room, you talk about it, you put the issues on the table, and you work through it, and you work through it, and you work through it, to the point where you get to that where everybody can say, yes, the comp plan makes sense. Today, we don't understand it. It's not easy to figure out. And I'm glad with the vote that John did, he went the right decision. Sorry, I just had to put that on the table.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is, the city adopts a lot of its agenda from statewide organizations like the Association for Washington Cities and Sound Cities Association. Do you believe these policies align with the best interests of Kirkland? I'll start off with... Okay, I'll phrase the question. Okay, the city adopts a lot of its agenda from statewide organizations like the Association for Washington Cities and the Sound Cities Association. Do you believe these policies align with the best interests of Kirkland? I'll start off with Katie Malik.
Why are you always starting with me? I really think what we need to do is start, and I've said this before, our current city council is really outward facing, really looking to adopt the policies of other organizations and then imposing that on the residents and businesses of Kirkland. I've said it a few times, and I'll say it again tonight. I'm looking to really focus on the functions of the city of Kirkland and advocating for us and pushing our ideas and what works for us and holding others in those other associations accountable, and getting things done for Kirkland and the residents of Kirkland that way.
Thank you, Katie. Next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
Yeah, I would need to look at what exactly those policies are to directly respond to that question. But in general, if there are any state policies that are being implemented by outside associations, I would want to make sure that it's not going to be okay because there's a state association and there's a policy, we're going to implement it in Kirkland. No, the assessment is, does it make sense for Kirkland or not? That's the question. And if it does, we implement. If not, we don't. And so I think it's simple as that. It is not going to be a one-size-fits-all. It is going to be a policy by policy assessment.
Thank you, Shilpa. Next candidate is Jay Arnold.
Well, first, I think the question is kind of incorrect because if you look at our legislative agenda, it is a Kirkland agenda. In fact, come Tuesday night, we're going to be talking about our 2026 legislative agenda, and you can look at it for the things we're looking for Kirkland. When there are opportunities to stand together with the Association of Washington Cities, which is every city in Washington, or the Sound Cities Association, which is every city in King County outside of Seattle, and say Washington cities need this legislature, we're going to stand together and say, yes, we're going to stand there with one voice. Same thing with cities, to say King County and Seattle, the rest of us need this, that this is different. But when Kirkland's interests were not supported by those, Kirkland has and will in the future go against the Sound Cities and the AWC legislative agenda.
Thank you, Jay. Next candidate is Ken Oberman.
Yeah, I think there's a good point where we need to understand a little bit more about what some of these policies are, but my position is actually pretty simple. If it's not the benefit of Kirkland, we will push back. We need to make sure that outside voices don't dictate the direction that we're going to go. We need to make a firm position on how we want to handle and drive Kirkland for the best of the Kirkland residents. That's what should always, always, always come first. Residents are the priority one, and then we'll figure everything out after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Kurt Dresner.
All right, I think it's important to remember that Association of Washington Cities is just one of the voices at the table. And it's a voice that we have a part to play in. And so I really view these like municipal leagues as sort of a mixed bag, right? There are times when they are advocating for things that are in the best interest of us because we are a city. And there are times when they are advocating in the best interest of cities that don't look anything like us. Most cities in Washington are smaller than Kirkland. And so a lot of times AWC is advocating for things that don't actually make sense for Kirkland. And in those cases, I agree with Jay, like we should push back. We should say, that's actually not for us. But it's a valuable tool that we have to have the Association for Washington Cities to be able to advocate for things that do make sense for all cities. Besides that, they also do other work that helps lighten the load for cities. There are things that they figure out that it wouldn't make sense for every city to do individually. And so that is also a way in which that they are useful to us.
Okay, thanks, Kurt. Next candidate is John Pascal.
Thank you. I think it's a good question because how do these outside organizations influence the city? So I don't think it's incorrect. I think it's a good question. So thank you for asking. When it comes to Association of Washington Cities and the Sound Cities Association, those are actually organizations that try to represent the best interests of cities across King County and the state. So a lot of times our policies and our priorities are going to align. Where it does come and where the policies don't align are usually the advocacy organizations, all the other organizations that get onto our legislative agenda. And so in those cases, I mean, we have dialogue, we have discussion, and we decide on which ones we agree with, which ones we don't, which ones we still have questions on. And so it's not a one size fits all. We'll continue to work on that, but it's always grounded in what's best for Kirkland.
Thank you, John. Next candidate is Neil Black.
Well, I think one of the things you're hearing is that John and I and Jay have a little bit of an advantage on this question because we know how the city actually, how it looks at those ally organizations like the Association of Washington Cities and South Cities Association. And that's why you're kind of hearing the same refrain, which is that, yes, we look at what they're doing, but that is not how we build our agenda. I'm the chair of the legislative work group. I am part of the effort to build that agenda, and it starts from the ground up. And it starts with our government affairs manager meeting with each of our council members who have spent the summer talking to their constituents, all of us, you. That's where our legislative agenda starts, and it starts with a really big list of possible priorities. It also involves conversations with our directors of our different departments. What are things that they're seeing that we need to work on? It really is a ground-up, City of Kirkland-based effort, and not everyone up here has the benefit of knowing that process, but that's the reality. And then what we do is what John and Jay mentioned. We look at an ally organization like Sound Cities Association or the Association of Washington Cities or WASPAC, which is the police and fire, police and sheriffs, and other ally organizations for what they're doing that might be something that would be good for the people of Kirkland. That's how we build our agenda, I think.
Cool. Thanks, Neil. And final candidate is Ken McKenzie.
I just got a little confused because the question was about these city leagues, and suddenly it turned into the agenda that we take to the state legislature. So let's go back to the city associations. And for me, the answer is you start bottom up, not top down. So you don't take a bunch of ideas from these organizations, and they have two roles. One is that they provide some mechanical help, like if you want to go do some research. Another is they have policy ideas. So you ignore the policy ideas, and those start with the people of Kirkland, not the staff of Kirkland, because the staff of Kirkland has their own ideas about what ought to be going on here. So you start with the people, and you go bottom up, and you create a city agenda that is a reflection of what the people need, going back to the basics of city government, and then you build yourself a city agenda.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks, everybody. We're going to shift gears now, and we're going to move to our yes-no questions. We supplied you with some yes-no signs. Please feel free to hold those up and flip. Everybody's got one, right? Right. Flip them back and forth for yes-no. I put a lot of work into those signs. I want to see those used. As a reminder to all of our candidates, please raise your yes-no signs for each question all at the same time.
The first question is, do you support term limits for City Council?
The next question is, do you believe Kirkland can meet state-mandated housing goals without sacrificing its unique neighborhood character?
The third question is, would you support reallocating city funds from lower visited projects to address public safety concerns if residents ask for it? Okay, okay. So the mic's not working really well tonight. Okay. Would you support reallocating city funds from lower visibility projects to address public safety concerns if residents asked for it?
When residential zoning code is revisited in 2026, do you favor increasing building heights and lot coverage and reducing setbacks to encourage more housing units throughout our neighborhoods?
Okay, question number 5. The next question is, do you think the city should take a more active role in bridging political divides amongst residents?
Thank you. Thank you all for that. That's it. Collective sigh of relief. That ends our question and answer period. Now we're going to switch gears again, and each of our candidates are going to have the opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. Candidate Jay Arnold, can you please start us off?
Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for Ken for hosting and United Methodist for having us here tonight. Kirkland has maintained its quality of life in the 35 years since I've been here through wise investments, thoughtful planning, regional engagement, and an involved community. And having you all here tonight is an important part of that involved community. Now, if you'll let me do some sports for a moment, Kirkland really has gotten some major hits where other cities have wanted to join our team, like with the Cross Kirkland Corridor, inspiring the overall East Trail, and with our crisis responders, where other cities have wanted to say, how do we join you and do those together? In addition, Kirkland's got some home runs that other cities have not been able to match. A good example is Ferreton Spur Park that Google has done, or the Kraken that are offering to build an Iceplex or community center here. And through that continued strong leadership, we will continue keeping Kirkland a beautiful, vibrant city.
Thank you, Jay. Next candidate is Ken Oberman.
By the way, it's not easy to get back in and out. In case you're wondering. All right. Well, first of all, thank you. This is just easier for me to stand up this way here, so I hope you don't mind. I'm running for Kirkland City Council because leadership be measured by action, not tenure. Across every neighborhood, I've heard the same message. Residents want transparency, they want accountability, and a council that reflects residents' values, not the priorities of outside groups. I'm here to build a future of bringing collaborative energy, which we just discussed, and a commitment to make every decision count for everyone who calls Kirkland home. My background brings decades of global experience working for Fortune 500 companies with strengths in communications, negotiations, contracts, and finance, just to mention a few. I'm excited to bring these skills to City Council. I'm committed, and my time is up, so I won't finish. Thank you very much. Looking forward to talking with you all afterwards.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Kurt Dresner. Be careful.
Go viral in a bad way. All right, you've heard a lot tonight about a lot of these neighborhood issues. There are many of the issues I've heard over the past few months as I talk to voters at their doors. Growth, transportation, neighborhoods. You've heard from 8 different people here asking for you to trust them to lead the city that we all call home. I love this city. I truly believe that our best days are ahead of us, and I'm excited for what's coming next. We've always been a regional leader, and cities, not just on the east side, but all over the state, look to Kirkland as an example of what can happen when you pair good governance with a bold vision. Now, there are those who would like to take Kirkland backward by saying no to progress and no to the future. But I believe we must be the city that says yes. Yes to innovative housing solutions so our kids and seniors can afford to live here in their neighborhoods. Yes to protecting and expanding our green spaces as we grow. And yes to building a vibrant, inclusive, and forward-thinking community for the next generation. The choice is between looking back or moving forward. I'm Kurt. I'm asking for your vote. Let's move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. Next candidate is John Pascal.
All right, thank you. So there's a lot at stake in this election. We were one vote away from eliminating residential zoning in the neighborhoods this past year, and so this election will likely decide the fate going forward. I value our neighborhoods, our businesses, I respect diverse viewpoints, and I make decisions grounded on data and community voices such as yourself. I also respect those who disagree with me, and frankly, I'm not aware of anyone up here that wants to take us back. Going forward, my priorities are squarely focused on what local government does best, ensuring growth that fits our community, housing that works for everyone, transportation that connects us all, safe and welcoming parks, and strong public safety. That's where I focused my work over the last 8 years here on council, and that's where I'll continue to lead if reelected. So it's been an honor to serve you all, and I'd be grateful for your continued support in this election. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next candidate is Ken McKenzie.
I believe in choice. Things like where and how you live. And our council majority and our senior city staff wants to take that choice away. They have a 20-year plan for a particular kind of Kirkland that's different, completely different from the Kirkland we know. It's time to keep Kirkland Kirkland. That means we move forward. That means that we have more and different places for people to live. And what kind of person do you want to help lead that? So I'll tell you a story about the group that I was on that defined the pool. there was a person on that group that I didn't know very well, and she wrote me a note when my candidacy became obvious and said, Ken, even though I never got my pool, I still have great respect for your integrity. Where do I donate? This was an opponent who signed up to support me because of my integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next candidate is Neil Black.
Well, again, I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's super important that you're engaged. I appreciate you being here. I want to share a little bit about what I've learned in 6 years of being on the Kirkland City Council. I originally ran in 2019, and one of my principal reasons I ran was to demonstrate sound governance. Demonstrate what good governance looked like at the local level, the level of government that is closest to people. I think it's super important. It's as important in this time as it was in any time. And so I remain dedicated to that. What does that look like? One of the things it looks like is listening with compassion. And that's something I will always do. It also requires to share the truth. Listening with compassion, but not sharing truth, starts to look like manipulation. What's really important as a leader in demonstrating sound governance, thoughtful decision making, is listening with compassion and then sharing the truth. The truth is we are under legal requirements. We do have budget constraints. We do have resource constraints. And we have legal restrictions. I will never make a commitment to you, a promise to you, that is not something that in my 6 years of experience that I can deliver. I will always make sure that the promises I make to you after listening to what your concerns are and understanding them is something a promise I can actually deliver on.
Thank you, Neil. Next candidate is Shilpa Prem.
So yeah, I want to thank Can again for organizing this event. It was awesome, and I love this city. I'm enjoying raising my twins here, and so glad that we ended up in Kirkland. After speaking to a number of voters in our community, I've come to realize that almost everyone, at the end of the day, want the ability to live a good, healthy, and positive, happy life. The decisions City Council makes really do impact our day-to-day lives, which is why who you decide to vote for is so critical. These decisions will impact what our open spaces will look like, how strong our infrastructure is going to be able to go from point A to point B, how affordable our housing will be so that seniors that have invested so much in our community are actually able to continue to live here, how our tax dollars are going to be spent in the future, and finally, how safe our community is going to continue to be. I understand that serving you starts with listening, and I will show up. I will show up to hear all sides of the issue so that I am making the most informed decisions that will impact our community as a whole. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa. The next candidate is Katie Malik.
Kirkland is growing, and while that brings opportunity, it also presents challenges. Ensuring we have the right infrastructure, whether it's roads, transit, utility, and water, or public spaces, is crucial to making sure our growth is both sustainable and positive for both new and existing residents. Beyond infrastructure, we also need to take into account our fiscal situation. We are stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we must make every dollar count. I'm committed to smart, responsible budgeting that ensures we're funding the services that matter most to you, which I've heard a lot of questions relating to that tonight. And I'm here today because I believe in Kirkland's future, one where we grow responsibly, invest wisely, and make thoughtful decisions that reflect the values of our community, and not the interests of a political agenda. Over the next 4 years, I look forward to hearing your thoughts, your concerns, and your ideas for our shared future. Your voice matters, and that's why I'm here. I'm Katie Malik. Please vote for me.
Thank you, Katie.
That wraps it up. So we'd like to thank all the candidates for showing up and for stepping up to serve. Let's be real, it's just not an easy job, and we really appreciate your commitment to the community. We also would like to thank everybody for the audience and those who are online for showing up as well. Hopefully you got something out of the event tonight. If you would like to watch a recording of this event, you could go out to Kirkland Can YouTube and view it, and that's Kirkland and Can with a K. And don't forget to vote. So if you're eligible and not registered, please go out, register, and vote, and you can go to vote.wa.gov. On behalf of the Kirkland Alliance of Neighborhoods, myself, Brad Williamson, and Matt Hawley, thank you and good night.